A country that once jailed people for being rich, built the world's biggest consumer market. Today, roughly 400 million people form a middle class born from a secret pact. December 18, 1978. A secluded meeting room at the Jingxi Hotel in Beijing. The thermometer read 32 degrees Fahrenheit on the snowy streets. Deng Xiaoping, a leader barely 5 feet tall, but with a steel gaze, slammed his fist on the solid wood table. Thick smoke from his Panda brand cigarette filled the stale air. In front of him, a group of terrified officials approved a historic document. Farmers could now sell their surplus grain for cash. Welcome to Plexo. Until that day, the state dictated every aspect of life. The economy was paralyzed. Hunger was constant in rural areas, where millions survived on meager rations. But the new leader understood that strict communism led to the abyss. Deng Xiaoping decided to change course. His plan wasn't to abandon authoritarianism, but to embrace financial pragmatism. The phrase was clear: take one step back to leap forward. The government allowed small private businesses on the outskirts of cities. The physical transformation was immediate and brutal. Within weeks, groups of farmers burned their state food coupons in clandestine bonfires along dirt roads. The world's most populous country had just ignited its own industrial revolution. There was no blueprint. It required capital. It required sacrificing doctrines. Everything was about to change. In August 1980, the Chinese government drew a line on the map around a small fishing village called Shenzhen. The decree created the country's first special economic zone. The goal: attract foreign capital by offering extremely cheap labor and zero taxes. The global response was a flood of money. Western corporations, desperate to cut production costs, sent billions of dollars to this new frontier. The village turned into a giant construction site. Within months, fleets of bulldozers crushed traditional rice paddies to make way for glass skyscrapers and massive concrete factories. News traveled fast to the poorest provinces. Millions of young people left their farms to earn wages in the new factories. They worked 14-hour shifts assembling toys, clothes, and electronics for the American market. Conditions were harsh. Wages were low. But for a generation that grew up hungry, earning $15 a month was an incalculable fortune. The economic miracle was built on this endless labor force. Each new factory attracted thousands more workers, sparking unprecedented domestic demand. People needed housing, food, transportation, and clothing. Money flowed from the West, turned into local wages, and then got spent in new urban shops. The consumption cycle was born. Shenzhen went from 30,000 residents to a vibrant metropolis. Jobs grew. Ambition grew. Bank account balances grew. The middle class was sprouting from the mud of rural China. December 11, 2001, marked the point of no return for the global economy. That day, China officially joined the World Trade Organization. Tariff barriers collapsed overnight. Manufactured goods flooded international markets at unbeatable prices. Production scale reached absurd levels. Factories ran 24/7. Within a few years, China became the top trading partner for over 100 countries. Exports multiplied tenfold. The industrial landscape reflected this frenzy. At the port of Shanghai, thousands of rusting steel containers stacked to the sky, blocking sunlight, while cranes loaded giant ships non-stop. Capital flowed into the country like an unstoppable torrent. This massive trade surplus filled state coffers, but it also transformed citizens' wallets. Industrial wages began to rise steadily. Workers who once assembled radios for $15 a month now earn $300 a month operating advanced machinery. The accumulation of wealth created a new social structure. Hundreds of millions of people crossed the poverty line into the lower middle class. They started buying appliances, mobile phones, and motorcycles. Foreign brands opened stores in Beijing and Guangzhou to capture this new purchasing power. It was a virgin market. An ocean of consumers. The greatest event of social mobility ever recorded in human history. With pockets full for the first time in generations, the new middle class faced an unusual problem. They didn't know where to keep their money. The local stock market was volatile, and state banks offered paltry interest rates. The solution they found defined the nation's urban landscape. Bricks became the country's financial religion. Families poured all their savings into buying apartments off-plan, convinced prices would never fall. The government fueled this fever, since land sales were the main revenue source for local municipalities. The result was a construction explosion unmatched in human history. Cranes dominated every city skyline. Real estate came to represent nearly 30% of GDP. But unchecked speculation left visible scars on the landscape. In Inner Mongolia, entire ghost cities with thousands of empty apartments stood illuminated by lonely streetlights in Ordos, waiting for buyers who never came. Giant concrete blocks rose in the middle of nowhere. Despite the excesses, homeownership cemented the new middle class's status. Owning an apartment in a first-tier city like Shanghai or Shenzhen meant having real assets. Families used this capital to finance their children's education and secure their future. Savings turned into concrete. Concrete consolidated wealth. Wealth changed the mindset of an entire generation. Today, the children of peasants who once burned their food coupons make up a middle class of 600 million. They no longer assemble plastic toys for the West. Instead, they design artificial intelligence and buy luxury electric vehicles. But the cost of this evolutionary leap is staggering. The pressure to maintain status has created an extreme work culture. The system, known as 996, demands work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. At the corporate headquarters of tech giants, hundreds of young professionals in suits routinely sleep on foam mattresses under their desks. The economic miracle is showing serious structural cracks. GDP growth has slowed dramatically. The real estate market, once the engine of family wealth, is buckling under colossal debts from companies like Evergrande. Youth unemployment has hit record highs, leaving millions of college graduates with no options in a saturated market. China's middle class is trapped between expectations of endless progress and the harsh reality of a maturing economy. They have money, but they've lost peace of mind. They conquered the global market, but face a relentless domestic system that devours their time and energy. The social contract promised wealth in exchange for obedience. Now, that pact is under maximum strain. China built the world's largest middle class on an irreversible principle: prosperity without freedom.